welcome again to Sid Caudle Christian
Thank
People's
you.
Alliance. And I've got an announcement to make. Sid has converted to an Andy Burnham fan because he likes he likes what he's going to do with all the vagrants that inhabit the city centres. It's a good scheme, is it, Sid?
Well, I've been looking at it in some detail, and there's certainly a lot of very good aspects to it. The total amount of funding that they say is allocated is 442 million, which is an increase of over 100 million. But 8.4 million of that is going to the Communities Fund, which is actually a government fund, but it's being allocated to different charities. And I've been looking at the charities involved that are actually getting the money. And it's quite interesting because they're actually giving 664,000 to the Derby City Mission, which is doing community outreach and winter night shelters in Derby. 646,000 is going to Kingdom Way Trust in Eastbourne, which is doing something similar. 624,000 is going to Forest Church's emergency night shelter in Waltham Forest. There's 557,000 going to a faith Christian group in Reading to fund their day-to-day operations, food and street outreach programs. 547,000 is going to Faith Works in Wessex, and so we can go on. So they are making a big effort to work with Christian charities, which are operating in different parts of the country. And it's these Christian charities that are providing emergency night shelters and getting people off the streets. And what they're doing is not charging anyone anything or giving them any money, but they're basically making sure that they've got a night shelter with a free meal for people sleeping rough. Now, that is Christian People's Alliance policy. So our policy is that we should have emergency night shelters and free meals for everyone sleeping rough. Now, the other thing is, as people come into these shelters, you can then assess their needs, which needs to be done. So you can basically find out why they're sleeping rough, why they're on the street, and what help they need. Some of them will need help with alcohol problems or drug problems, because that is sometimes why people are on the street. But if you find that out because they go to an emergency night shelter, you can then help them and assist them with their alcohol and drug problems, and then help them get over those addictions, with support. For other people, it'll be because they've left prison and have been living a life of crime and are not allowed, in some cases, to return to their family home because probation have basically told them, we consider you a danger to the children, so we're not letting you go back home. So, sometimes these people are then given a hostel, but the hostels are often full of drugs. So that's not the answer. And frequently these people end up sleeping rough. And it's not surprising if they're sleeping rough if they end up then committing more crimes. So Andy Burnham is recognizing this. He's recognizing that people are leaving prison and sleeping rough and then committing crime. He's recognizing that actually that's costing the taxpayer far more than this project of helping people sleeping rough. And he's also recognizing that a lot of people sleeping rough end up using the NHS because they end up with fights and them being injured and so on and so forth. And by the way, I've actually spoken to people that are sleeping rough, and it's amazing the number of people that are attacked, by thugs simply because they're sleeping rough and for no other reason. So these people end up in the NHS. So, and Andy Burnham's recognised that. So I think what he's doing, frankly, is absolutely the right way forward.
That's fine. One thing that encourages me, of course, is the church has woken up. Well, part of the church has woken up. I noticed from all those charities there appeared to be no Anglican charity. They're the established church in the United Kingdom. And regretfully, as a member myself, I regularly criticise the state of the church. But these are independent, dare one say evangelical Christian churches that are alive and well and doing good things, Sid.
Yes, absolutely. And you see, the thing is, we've got the Message Trust in Manchester that's been phenomenally effective. And of course, Andy Burnham, having been Mayor of Manchester, will be well aware, I'm sure, of what the Message Trust has been doing with great success. And that's why he's actually saying, yeah, we can do it. And although people are critical of what he did in Manchester, he actually did brilliantly. He's got a lot of people off the street in Manchester. The problem was, and because they were getting so many people off the street in Manchester and working successfully, you then had people coming from other cities going to Manchester because that's where you can get help. And that's why, even though he was helping a lot of people in Manchester, there was still a large number of people left on the streets. He didn't get everyone off the streets. But he himself has said, what we need is a national program because just having a local program. And by the way, it's very clear, because I've looked at the statistics of people sleeping rough. By far the largest groups are in the City of London and in Westminster. You're literally looking at very large numbers there sleeping rough and nothing being done about it. So really, this comes back to Sadiq Khan. Sadiq Khan has completely failed to do anything about people sleeping rough in London. Totally failed.
Yeah, I'm still a bit sanguine about things because, yeah, he had a go at this in Manchester several years ago. It had certain success, but by no means a total success. It is a difficult area, Sid. But the reason I'm a bit skeptical is that all we've had, I go back to my phrase of dolly mixtures. These are cheap ways of grabbing headlines. And it's only £100 million in actual fact he's given, as you pointed out, to what is already being given. And I regard Andy Burnham as a second Tony Blair. Spin, brilliant. Presentation, brilliant. Actual hard cash, cake on your plate, very little. And I will not, I repeat, as I've mentioned on various programs, listen to a word he says until he stops the boats. Now,
Yeah.
why I'm adamant about that, Sid, this has not made the news in Britain, but I can tell you from where we are here, there was another gigantic wave of immigrants in Ceuta in North Africa, in the Spanish enclave there this last weekend. This was after the first 70,000. They were massing on the borders. So what did Spain do? Spain sent in the Guardia Civil. They sent in the Policía Nacional. What did Morocco do? Sent in the army. There was agreement between Morocco and Spain, and they dissipated it at source. Now think of England and France. This could be done, but we're letting France get away with murder in some cases. We've paid them £1 billion. Why can't we do what Spain and Morocco have done to stop? I'll tell you, and it's very simple. And that is the Labour Party, part of the Conservative Party, want to get back into Europe. That's why we've still got ECHR. That's why we're letting the French get away with the nonsense of actually helping people onto boats and not stopping them. It's an utter disgrace. And I'm surprised that British mainstream press have not kept up with that. That is fact.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I was talking about, the Sleeping Rough scheme, which I think is actually excellent. But I totally agree with you. Andy Burnham has completely failed on stopping the boats, and I don't think he really wants to stop the boats, or at least if he does, he can't get the support of the majority of people in the Labour Party who don't want to stop the boats. But, we've got to understand the reality of what's going on. These aren't sort of poor people that are desperate for help and, at their wits' end. This is a deliberate Islamic hijra that is people being sent over from Islamic countries to try and make the West Islamic. I mean, that's what's going on. And of course, the Labour Party won't get to grips with it. I do think the Conservative Party wanted to get to grips with it and did try with their Rwanda scheme, but they were frustrated both by left-wing civil servants and left-wing judges. It was basically the judges had basically said, no, we're not allowing you to send people to Rwanda. Because why? Oh, it's against their human rights. Oh, what utter nonsense. What utter nonsense. So the Conservative Party tried, and at least they did introduce initiatives like the Barge as well, which the Labour Party immediately scrapped when they came into power. They immediately scrapped the Rwanda scheme. That was actually proving effective, even though the scheme hadn't properly started, because just the fact that the people thought that they were going to be sent to Rwanda meant that they were going to in large numbers to Ireland rather than coming to Dover, and the numbers did decline enormously because the scheme was there and being talked about, even though it hadn't never really started. But yeah, I mean, they at least tried. This one in, one out scheme with France is utter nonsense. I mean, there's been hardly anyone actually involved in it, and they've actually shown that a lot of people that were sent back under the one in, one out scheme actually turned up again on the next small boat. I mean, okay, they were sent back to France, but it didn't stop them going again on coming again on another small boat. So I mean, it's just been that scheme has been a complete nonsense, and giving money to France to stop the boat has clearly not worked at all. So you're quite right. The 1 billion we've given to France has been an utter and total waste of money. But we could close the borders if we wanted to, like you say, send in the army, send in the navy, tow the boats back. I mean, there's loads of ways. Other countries, Australia, have shown that you just put a tow rope on the boats, tow them back to where they came from, and job's done. And the people soon stop coming if they see that they're just going to be towed back to where they come from. I mean, it worked in Australia. There's loads of things that can work, but they don't want to stop the boats.
Yes, beware of who's your enemy, and back to France and thoughts about France. They are the biggest protagonists at the moment, actually, behind the scenes, of course, of wanting us to rejoin the EU.
Yeah.
They want us. Why, I wonder? Well, there's the military thing. We've still got some intelligence left in the military. Might have not have much boats, but we know how to do things, and we've still got a good army and air force, creaking, of course, at the joints. But there are reasons that France want us back in there. We're a good ally. Germany's going to the right, and this is going to be very interesting this autumn with the AfD. People are really voting for a Farage party in Germany for the first time. So there's lots of things going on here, Sid, that are not in the public domain that need to be put there. People are not stupid. Voters are not stupid. And they're now coming to see what is really happening or has happened for 14 years with the alliance, if you wish, between Tory and Lib Dem. It's been an absolute disaster. The Tory party is still full of wets. This is a real problem. As a lifelong Tory, I wouldn't vote Tory. And then you think of reform, and I think they've got fantastic policies, but they're very brittle, Sid. There's another one jumped ship this last few days. And you wonder how long Farage can hold it all together.
Okay, yeah, well, I agree with most of what you've said, other than the brilliant reform policies, because I don't think that they've really got their policies together yet. I mean, they're still throwing out ideas, but they're not really certain what they're going to do. But as far as the Conservative Party is concerned, Yeah, I think they are changing. Kemi Badenoch has sought to take control of the party and steer it in a totally different direction from where it was in the past. But as far as the EU is concerned, you see, the Conservative Party's always been split over the EU. I mean, you remember under the John Major government, he was very scathing of the Eurosceptics in his party. And it was, and I know from my time in the Conservative Party that that you had a very strong pro-EU faction, a very strong anti-EU faction. Both factions were very strong within the party. But as far as the situation now is concerned, you have to remember that we used to give 10 billion a year to the EU. And we were the second largest contributor to the EU after Germany. Now, of course, France want us back. Of course, they want us back. 10 billion is a lot of money. And if we were to go back now and rejoin the single market or rejoin the customs union, they would demand, obviously, a very high price for it. And they would insist, yes, you can rejoin. It's going to cost you probably 8 billion to join them. And then to fully join the European Union, they want another 2 billion. So that's minimum, because that 10 billion was after Margaret Thatcher negotiated a refund. So if you actually applied the mechanism properly, we'd have been paying a lot more than 10 billion. And there was a lot of people complaining about the British refund because the way the EU mechanism worked, it was very much against our interests. But as I've said many times before, see, there's no economic reason whatsoever for us to be in the EU. The logic economically is that we should have no agreement and impose tariffs on the EU and to try and equalize the massive trade imbalance that we have with the EU. So at the moment, we have a massive trade imbalance that goes to the tune of nearly 100 billion a year in trading imbalance. So we actually import nearly 100 billion more of goods from the EU than they import from us, which is an enormous figure. And Trump has shown that when these enormous trade imbalances operating, which he had with Canada, Mexico, and the EU, he didn't have it with the UK, but he had it with Canada, Mexico, and the EU and China. And when you impose tariffs on their goods, in order to try and equalize the trading situation, it actually works. And America has now got a massive revival in their manufacturing. No longer have they got this massive trade imbalance. The trade imbalance is now equalizing with all the foreign countries. And there's a tremendous benefit to the US economy of imposing the tariffs. He's proved that. So we can do the same. Instead of having an agreement with the EU that's basically locking in their massive trade advantage, we want to just leave completely, have no agreement, impose tariffs, and bring back equalisation. That's what's in our interests. Paying this 10 billion again, which would now undoubtedly be 15 to 20 billion, would be a massive disadvantage to us. And that's the reality. The only reason that anybody wants to go back into the EU is political. It's not economic.
Absolutely right. Something you mentioned a little bit earlier, which I'll mention in conjunction, going back to Ceuta and the agreement. I mean, word on the block and nothing more than that at the moment, so I better use allegedly. If there had not been an agreement between Morocco and Spain, and perhaps it did happen this way, you can lean on Morocco because so much of their produce, tomatoes, strawberries, green beans, come across there. And I myself have confidence to say, I bet there was some chap saying, come on, play ball here, help us out. And we could, as you mentioned, and I state, we could do that with the French because of the imbalance in trade. And we don't do a Trump. Don't know why. We're too nice as a nation, maybe. Which leads us on to the next statement, Sid. Well, what do we make of the Care for Calais charities and other charities that are giving presents to the immigrants, the illegal immigrants? 30,000 of them were treated as Christmas boxes, not at Christmas, all through the year. 162,000 items handed out, many of which were Ramadan food packs. Now, that's a British charity, and it's doing a disservice to the problem. Completely, it should be stopped immediately.
Yeah, well, this underlines exactly what I'm saying. These aren't destitute people fleeing persecution. It's an Islamic Hajj, deliberately designed in order to come and make the West. I mean, it's not just Britain, it's the West in general, more Islamic. And of course, Islamic charities are going to help them. And the left are so stupid that they've got no idea what's going on. So they're just giving enormous amounts of money to these Islamic charities. So they're helping the Islamic charities help people to make the West more Islamic. I mean, that's what's going on. And of course, what the Muslims do is to say, oh, well, we need you to give us money, and we'll vote for you. Because if you don't give us money, if you don't give us planning permission for our mosque, if you don't give us money to our charity, then if you don't help us, then we're not going to vote for you. So we're going to vote for somebody else. So you must give us money. And the Labour Party and the Greens and the Lib Dems, especially, and to a lesser extent even the Conservatives too, think, oh yes, absolutely, we'll give you money to help you. And by the way, I've had Muslims approach me as well. If you do this to support and help the Muslim community, then we can help the CPA and we can get votes for the CPA from the Muslim community. And I'm just looking at these people thinking, you must be joking.
There can be no doubt, said that the Labour Party is harvesting a lot of votes from the people that they are letting in. That is another gimme, and everybody knows it. And other things that people know really is the situation regarding what we call the bleeding heart part of our society. Now, we're a very generous nation in many ways, but there are the progressive liberals that are on a mission, just like the Islamists in their terms, to bring about a radical change in society. And they're very aggressive, and they're appealing to the good hearts of the British nation. They're making them feel guilty still for slavery hundreds of years ago. It's all part of it. We've got to do this, that, and the other to recompense these poor people. Now, it is from the left, the communist left. And, when people look at things like the Fabian Society and how active they've suddenly become, they've been going many, many decades, but they're getting really militant. This is all part of what's happening, Sid.
Absolutely. And one of the chief allies of this slavery reparations movement is Sarah Mullally, the Archbishop of Canterbury. And she's talking about the church giving 100 million to the anti-slavery movement. 100 million. So what's she doing? I mean, she's basically saying that I'm going to bleed the church dry and give all the money to left-wing groups. And she's Archbishop of Canterbury. I mean, but you see, the thing is, if people don't understand, I mean, slavery was something which was terrible. But the people who benefited from slavery were first and foremost the traders in Africa who were rounding up people and selling them as slaves to the colonies. So basically to Jamaica and and in even parts of the United States and whatever. And of course, there were British traders involved who were making a lot of money through helping to organize it. And but who does the reparation go to? I mean, does the reparation go to the African countries who were selling the slaves? Does the reparation go to the colonies, Jamaica and America, who were receiving the slaves and using them? I mean, I mean, the reparation certainly can't go to the slave traders. I mean, so who does it go to? I mean, how do you? And the other thing is, you see, is that because slave owners were actually having sex with slaves, some of today's descendants of slaves, may also be descendants of slave owners as well. So, I mean, so the whole thing's a complete mix, a complete farce. You certainly can't just give money to African countries. I mean, so who are you giving the money to?
Yeah, when you enter into a discussion with a lefty, let's term them, there is no discussion. They've got their own fixed ideas. They will not bend. They will not seek the other point of view, and they become very aggressive. Whereas the Bleeding Heart Brigade are only too willing, too often, to say, "Oh, well, you might have a point." Well, I'm sure they do. It's not the right one. Sid, before we go on to our sports bit, I'm going to read you another bit of a headline, and I want you to square the circle here. Only 17% of the total amount of Londoners actually voted for Sadiq Khan. 17%. Only 25% of Manchester voters voted Labour for our friend Andy Burnham. Very low, isn't it?
Yes, you see, but this underlines the point why, there's a lot of people not voting. And, there's a lot of people that will complain like crazy, particularly in London, which is about 20-mile-an-hour zones and all the crime in London and so on and so forth, as well as people sleeping rough in London, which they're doing nothing about. Um, but if they don't vote at election time, or they don't have any concerted effort to vote and get Sadiq Khan out, then it's their fault, isn't it? I mean, and this is one of the things with the Muslims, you see, and the Muslims almost will almost 100% of the Muslims you will find vote, and probably more than 100%, because they'll dream up people that don't exist in order to vote. I think I may have mentioned before that we actually had somebody during these last elections that actually said, I've got people on the electoral register at my house that are registered to vote, and I don't know who they are, and I've reported it, but I've heard nothing back. It's just like, oh, so there was somebody who was registering people to vote at different addresses, and they didn't live at that address. The people at that address didn't know who they were, but nothing was done about it. And I can almost guarantee you those people will have voted. So I mean, there's electoral fraud going on, and the authorities are making no effort to get to grips with it. But the only answer is for the massive majority that aren't voting to get out and vote these people out.
Yeah, it's a Donald Trump situation, isn't it? It has crossed the Atlantic. Sports, very briefly, cricket. The 100 has suddenly come in for a lot of criticism. And I'm not surprised, even though I've watched it, we discussed it last time. The rains have come, of course, and now we've got test match cricket. Yeah, says it all. And we've got Mr. Root back. Well, he's made a good first day, Sid.
Yes. I actually watched my first 100 match last week, and I actually quite enjoyed it. It was something different, and of course, I mean, they're absolutely hit every ball is matters, which obviously in Test match cricket you can often have, you might go 2 or 3 overs with no runs being scored. Means you won't get that in the 100. But yeah, so I mean, it maybe has its place. I don't know, but as far as Test match cricket is concerned, yes, I mean England have made a good start against Pakistan. Pakistan aren't the strongest team in the world. So, incidentally, by the way, Bangladesh have just beaten Australia in Australia, I believe. A phenomenal
Yeah,
result.
they've got some fabulous spin bowlers. I think they did the trick there.
Yeah, but I mean that's a surprise. Well, Bangladesh didn't even used to be a test nation a few
No,
years ago,
no, no, that's
and
true.
and, and now they're beating Australia. So it just goes to show that it's possible. My criticism of Root is that when things go badly, his head goes down, and I've seen it. And what then tends to happen is once England start losing, they just carry on losing because he doesn't have the ability as a captain to pick the team up when they're on the rocks. That's the ability that people like Mike Brearley had, that Stokes had, that other good captains have had. Literally, just this stupid. We've got to fight back. We can fight back. The situation might look bad, but we can fight back and we can win. And
One good thing about Root Sid is that actually he's got a bit of steel. He said, "I don't want Jofra Archer." And that was a decisive move. Instead, he used one local fast bowlers, and they both got 5 wickets each, which is a bit of an achievement. They reckon they're going to have to cut the ball in half and give half a ball to each. Of course, in cricket, you get a ball. If you get 5 wickets, in football, you score 3 goals, a hat trick, and you get the ball. There you go. Lastly, I don't think people have got the appetite they usually have at the start of a season. For football, we've had too much of it.
no, I think you're right. Absolutely. I mean, I got a bit fed up with the World Cup when it was a case of, 3 matches on in an evening, and you just think, oh, it's just too much football. And of course, we've had that throughout July, and then it's like, oh, it comes to August, and we've got a new season starting again. Yeah, no, I think we have had too much football, but who knows? Maybe it'll come back again. But people do love football, but the amount of money that's being made from football now, we could come to a situation where it's just where people stop watching it because there's too much of it.
Yeah, and the BBC up in Manchester, where Match of the Day is recorded and put out live, in fact, from there, they have got major problems. People are having rows about who should be on. It's not helped by the fact that Gary Lineker has gone over to Netflix with a lot of his mates, and as many people are watching that as Match of the Day. The BBC are in a mess, aren't they, in lots of ways, including football?
Well, the problem with the BBC is that they're more interested in diversity than they are in the quality of the product. And when you focus on, oh, we got to have the right number of women, we've got to have the right number of ethnic minorities, we've got to have the right number of people that are homosexual or whatever, in the program, then if that's your focus, then you lose focus on the quality of what you're producing. And I'm afraid that is the problem with the BBC.
Amongst others. Thank you, Sid. Politics gets in everywhere, even to football. We'll see you next week.
Cheers.